Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. She said it so loud the neighbor probably heard it through the window. I'm better off on my own. No warning. No build-up. No emotion behind it. Just a sharp, confident declaration, as if she'd been rehearsing it for weeks and couldn't wait to finally deliver the line. She didn't even look at me when she said it. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding a coffee mug I hadn't even had a chance to sip from. My mind didn't catch up right away. My ears did. They heard it clearly. But my brain stood still, like it didn't want to translate the words into something I could react to. Maybe I was hoping I heard wrong. I didn't. She was still standing near the hallway, scrolling through her phone like the argument had already ended. Like the sentence had closed the book on whatever this marriage used to be. I said nothing. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't plead or argue or try to get her to soften it. Something inside me paused. Like my body knew better than my heart did. Because this wasn't the first cold statement she'd thrown at me lately. Over the past few months, something had shifted. At first it was subtle. She stopped texting me during the day. Then she stopped asking how my day was. Then she started working later, watching more shows by herself in the living room, going to bed before I even turned the lights off downstairs. One night I came up to bed and she had her back to me already, blanket pulled over her shoulder. I reached out to touch her arm gently, and she flinched. That was 2 months ago. I haven't touched her since. I thought it was a rough patch. We'd been married nearly 8 years. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe I wasn't showing up in the right way. I went out of my way to do more. Handled more of the chores. Cooked. Washed her car without her asking. Picked up her favorite bottle of wine from that tiny liquor shop she liked near her office. She never drank it, but she did find the time to leave it untouched in the fridge while she went out for catch-ups with friends she never introduced me to. The kind of friends who didn't show up in tagged photos. Friends who seemed to need her attention on weekends, holidays, and long after midnight. I noticed all of it. And yet, I said nothing. Not because I was weak. Not because I didn't care. Because I wanted to believe that whatever this was, it would pass. But when she said, I'm better off on my own, something clicked in me. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. If that's what she believed, if that's the story she told herself to justify the way she'd been treating me, then maybe it was time I started believing it, too. She didn't flinch when I walked past her. Just kept scrolling, probably half expecting me to slam a door or yell something back. But I didn't. I went straight to the bedroom, sat at the edge of the bed, and stared at my reflection in the mirror on her vanity. Not mine. Hers. The one she used to sit in front of every morning, curling her hair, adding mascara she never wore when we went out together, but always had on when she came home late from work drinks. She hadn't used that mirror in weeks. It didn't even feel like her room anymore. It felt like a museum of someone who'd already left. She just hadn't packed yet. That night, I lay awake in silence. And I realized something that should have terrified me but didn't. I didn't feel heartbreak. I didn't even feel angry. I felt empty. Like the grief had already been spent somewhere in the weeks leading up to this. She had been slowly leaving me for months. She just hadn't used the front door yet. And so, I began to do the one thing she never expected. I started pulling back. Not all at once. Quietly. When her car needed gas, I didn't fill it. When she left dishes in the sink, I didn't clean them. When she called out from another room asking if we had laundry detergent, I didn't answer. I let the silence do the talking. The same silence she'd used on me for months. She didn't notice at first. Not really. That's what happens when someone's checked out. They assume you'll always pick up the pieces behind them. But I wasn't picking up anything anymore. I had stopped being her safety net. And she hadn't even realized it. Not yet. But she would. And when that moment came, that moment she looked around and realized what she thought she'd outgrown was the only thing holding her world together, I wouldn't be standing there, waiting. I'd already be gone. She started noticing around the 5th day. I could tell because she stopped asking casual questions, the ones she used to toss over her shoulder without waiting for an answer. Things like, hey, did you pick up the dry cleaning? Or did you pay the water bill? Instead, she started checking. She'd open drawers, check the laundry herself, dig through unopened mail. I wasn't being petty. I wasn't hiding anything. I was just done playing husband while she acted like a stranger in my home. She still hadn't apologized for that night. Not even a half-hearted, I didn't mean it. Because she did mean it. She wanted me to believe she could walk away and be fine. Maybe she even wanted to believe it herself. But when you spend years building a life with someone, Pretending none of it mattered isn't as easy as slamming a door and claiming freedom. Not when your entire lifestyle is built on the foundation you now despise. I wasn't the man who made her feel trapped. I was the man who made her feel secure enough to act like I didn't matter. That week, she started dressing differently. Not like she was trying to impress me. Those days were long gone, but like she had something to prove. More makeup, tighter jeans, hair curled, even on days she worked from home. And then came the nights out. First, it was a girls' night with her coworker Megan. Then it was drinks with her old college friends, people I'd never heard of, let alone met. One Friday, she said she was going to a book club. She left in a leather jacket, heels, and no book. She didn't even bother lying well anymore. I let her have her performances. Let her pretend she still had control. Meanwhile, I watched. Quietly. I wasn't stupid. I knew something else was going on. But I didn't want accusations. I wanted confirmation. So I started paying attention to the details she thought I was too blind to notice. She'd go to the bathroom with her phone now. She used to leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. Now it never left her side. She laughed more at messages than she ever did at my jokes. She even changed her passcode. What she didn't know was that her smartwatch still synced to the iPad she kept in her desk drawer, the one she'd forgotten about since she bought her new laptop last Christmas. It took me 5 minutes to find it. 10 more to figure out where the texts were syncing from. And then, there it was. A message. From someone saved as Dean. Work. Last night was too short. You're dangerous in that dress. No response from her in that thread. Nothing that night, anyway. But there were more. Teasing. Jokes. Inside references. Calls logged late. Midday messages like, just seeing your name makes me smile from him. I scrolled slowly. Not trying to torture myself, just trying to be sure. She hadn't crossed the line yet. But she was dancing right on it. And she liked the dance. She liked the attention. The validation. She liked being the one pursued. The one wanted. What she didn't like. Being seen. Dean didn't know the version of her that left laundry for days or screamed at her husband across the kitchen. He didn't know her silence, her emotional coldness, the way she weaponized distance until it became unbearable. He saw the woman in lipstick in a wine glass. I saw the one in sweats and contempt. She didn't love him. Not yet. She just loved the way he made her forget what she was destroying. That night, she came home late again. 11:17 p.m. I watched from the darkened hallway as she tiptoed in like a teenager avoiding her parents. She didn't realize I was awake. She didn't ask if I had eaten. She went straight to the bathroom, light spilling out across the floor. I stood there, staring at that light, thinking about everything I'd read. Every smile and miss me yet, and can't stop thinking about you Dean had sent her over the past few weeks. And I realized something she didn't know yet. She thought this was a game she could win. She thought I was still sitting in some emotional cage, waiting for her to choose me again. But I had already left her. Quietly. Methodically. And I wasn't done yet. The next day, I reached out to the one person she never saw coming, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Her older sister, Mia. We never got along. Not really. But Mia had always seen her sister's flaws. The same way I had. And Mia wasn't exactly a fan of Dean, because he used to date one of Mia's best friends. Apparently, Dean had a pattern. And Mia? She loved exposing liars. Mia called me that same night. She didn't even sound surprised. I always knew she'd get too comfortable, she said before I even got a word in. You sure you're ready for whatever this brings? I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I've been ready since the night she said she's better off alone. Mia wasn't the type to hold back. Never had been. She once told me at a Christmas party, in front of everyone, that her sister only likes loyalty when it's convenient. Now, suddenly, she was offering hers to me. I sent her the screenshots, not all of them, just enough to paint the picture. She didn't hesitate. Dean, she scoffed. The guy who got kicked out of Julie's apartment after 2 months for texting her roommate? That Dean. Bingo. Apparently, Dean had a little problem with boundaries. And commitment. And, from what Mia said, a fondness for emotional manipulation wrapped in wine-night flattery. He was a fantasy. A mask. And he was exactly the kind of man who disappeared the second reality asked for more than compliments and suggestion. Still, I wasn't here to start a war. I wasn't going to play the same games my wife was. I just needed Mia to do one thing. Feed the fire. All I asked was that she casually mention to my wife that she'd heard something interesting about Dean. Not an accusation. Just enough to plant doubt. The kind that eats from the inside out. Mia agreed. Smiling, probably. 2 days later, the shift happened. It was subtle. My wife came home from yoga earlier than usual. Her energy was different. She asked if I'd eaten. She offered to make something. That hadn't happened in months. I played along, quietly, watching. She was trying to gauge something. Whether I knew, whether I still cared, whether I was still hers to manipulate. I gave her nothing. Later that night, I saw her texting again, this time with her screen angled slightly toward me. No emoji, no flirty grins, just stiff posture and little glances my way. She was baiting me, but I didn't bite. I wasn't here to argue. I was here to watch her unravel at the silence she used to weaponize against me. The next morning, she asked if I wanted to take a weekend trip, said we needed a reset, even used the word us, a word she hadn't said in months. I told her I had work, didn't even look up from my coffee. Her smile faltered. Good, because the illusion was breaking. Not for me. I had shattered that months ago. But for her. She was realizing that the version of me she thought she could take for granted was no longer available. That night, I called the bank and separated our accounts. I'd been preparing this for a while, slowly moving things without triggering alarms. My paycheck no longer hit our joint account. Automatic transfers were canceled. A new card with only my name sat in my wallet, untouched, waiting. She hadn't noticed yet. She would. The real crack came the following Sunday. She came downstairs looking anxious, phone in hand, makeup half done. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Finally, she muttered, "Do you think we're okay?" I shrugged. "I think we're exactly where you said we should be." She flinched like she'd forgotten her own words. But I hadn't. I never would. Later that evening, I stepped outside to take a call from Mia. She was laughing. "Thought you'd want to know. Dean blocked her this morning." I didn't say anything. I just smiled. "I guess he wasn't so enchanted after all," she added. "Want me to stir the pot a little more?" I considered it. But no. The silence was doing more damage than any rumor could. Because now, she wasn't sure what was real anymore. She didn't know if I knew about Dean. She didn't know if I still cared. She didn't know if I was staying or going. And that uncertainty? It was undoing her. I saw it in the way she lingered at the kitchen counter. The way she checked her phone, then hid it, then checked again. The way she started asking questions she once rolled her eyes at. "Did you sleep okay? Do you want to do something this weekend? Do you still love me?" I didn't answer that last one. Not yet. Because the time for answers was coming. Just not the one she was expecting. She was spiraling now. I didn't need to dig through her phone or follow her car to see it. You could read it in her posture. In the way she lingered at the kitchen table like she was waiting for a conversation that never came. In the way she kept trying to fix dinners that only a few weeks ago, she'd rolled her eyes at when I cooked them myself. That Friday night, she pulled out my favorite beer, the one she never bought, made a show of opening the fridge and placing it in front of me like it was a peace offering. I didn't say anything, just slid it back across the counter without even looking up. Her fingers curled slightly. Then she forced a smile and walked away. I could feel the cracks widening. Every moment of silence between us used to be her weapon. Now it was mine. And I wasn't just using it. I was building something with it. A life without her. A plan she didn't know was already in motion. Because while she was spending nights chasing the thrill of attention, I had been reorganizing everything. The lease renewal? Signed in my name only. I'd negotiated that months ago when I offered to handle our property taxes. The utilities? Transferred. The spare credit card she used for groceries and gas. Already shut down. I left it active just long enough to avoid suspicion. Her name still sat on some of the paperwork, but by next week, not even that would remain. I was disappearing from her life. But not loudly. Not with slamming doors or shouting matches or public scenes. Silently. Methodically. The same way she slipped out of our marriage while still wearing the ring. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. Saturday afternoon, she stepped into the hallway holding her phone like it had betrayed her. She didn't say anything at first. Just stared at me while I folded laundry. Then she asked, "Did you ever read my messages?" I met her gaze. Calm. Unflinching. No. Technically true. She bit her lip, eyes narrowing. "Because I think I owe you an explanation." No? Now she wanted to explain? She sat on the arm of the couch, body angled like she wasn't sure how close she could get without tipping something over. There was someone. Kind of. But it didn't mean anything. It wasn't physical. I waited. It was just texting. Stupid stuff. I think I was just lonely. I don't know. I felt like we were drifting and I made a mistake. Still, I didn't speak. She exhaled slowly, voice soft. I stopped. I blocked him. I want to work on this. On us. I don't want to lose what we had. Had. That was the key word. Because what we had was gone. Burned out under months of silent contempt and quiet betrayal. But she didn't know that I'd already let go. That I'd stopped needing her apology weeks ago. That forgiveness doesn't always come with reunion. I nodded once. Not as an agreement, but as acknowledgement. And that seemed to give her hope. For a moment, I think she believed she had a chance to reclaim something. Until Sunday morning. She woke up late, stretching like she had nothing to worry about. She walked into the kitchen in one of my old shirts, the one she used to wear when we were good. But the counter was clear. No coffee. No breakfast. No car in the driveway. Just a printed letter on the island. You were right. You're better off on your own. So am I. The utilities will run through the end of the month. After that, they're not my concern. The lease is no longer shared. The bank cards are canceled. There's no confrontation coming. No angry words. Just distance. And silence, this time, mine. I left my keys in a bowl by the front door. By the time she finished reading that letter, I was already checked into a short-term rental on the other side of the city. A place she didn't know. A space she'd never enter. I didn't need her to call. Didn't need closure. The silence she used to punish me had become my freedom. And now? She was the one listening to it echo back at her. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. No calls. No texts. No emails. Just silence. Ironic. For once, she was the one experiencing what I had endured for months, waiting for a response that never came, wondering what the silence meant, replaying moments she thought she controlled, now suddenly terrified of what they might have cost. On the 3rd day, she called. Once. Then twice. Then 5 times in a row. I let them all ring out. Later that evening, I got a message. One of those carefully worded, overly polite ones that tries to hide desperation under punctuation. I think we need to talk. I've made a lot of mistakes. I know it's late, but, please, just give me the chance to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of peace. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a placeholder in my own life. I didn't feel disposable or invisible or unworthy. I felt like a man who finally chose himself. She didn't expect that. She thought I'd be angry, reactive, begging for closure, for explanation. But I didn't need either. The moment she realized she'd thrown away something real, I was already too far gone to be reached. The next morning, Mia texted me. She showed up at Mom's crying. Said she didn't think you'd actually leave. I smiled. Of course she didn't. She thought she had time. She always thought she had time. But the truth is, she ran out the moment she said, I'm better off on my own. She just didn't hear the door quietly closing behind her. But what if I had handled it differently? What if, instead of silence, I let her talk? We met at a small diner the following week. Neutral territory. She wore a sweater I'd bought her last winter, like it might trigger some kind of nostalgia I couldn't fight. Her eyes were glassy. Her voice cracked. She laid everything out, Dean, the lies, the guilt. She said she'd never stopped loving me. That she just got caught up in wanting to feel wanted. That she never expected to lose me in the process. I listened. Then I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a sealed envelope, and slid it across the table. Divorce papers. She stared at it like it might bite her. I said nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. For too long. And I was done bleeding for someone who only missed me once I was gone. When she reached for my hand, I stood up. Take care of yourself, I said softly. You'll need to. And I walked out, leaving the echo of her sob behind me. But there's another version I sometimes imagine. One where I forgive her. One where she shows up at my door, not with excuses, not with tears, but with brutal honesty. She tells me about the emptiness she couldn't fill, even with attention from someone else. She tells me about the regret that eats her alive at night, about the memory of the man she took for granted, and how losing him made her realize what real love looks like. And for some reason, I let her in. We don't jump back into marriage. We don't pretend like none of it happened. But we rebuild. Slowly. Painfully. She earns back what she broke. I learn to trust what shattered. And maybe, just maybe, we find something stronger than what we lost. But that version? That version depends on who she chooses to be after the silence. And some people never leave the echo chamber they built for themselves.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.